success in life depends on not just absorbing information and sort of regurgitating it in some ways, but it also depends on what new things you're adding.
This is the Indianness podcast, stories of success from leaders and changemakers of Indian origin. Why have Indians achieved success across so many different disciplines around the globe? I have no idea, but let's find out together, because every story is so unique and rich. I'm so very excited to have Dr. Ruchir Puri with us today. He's the Chief Scientist of IBM Research, an IBM Fellow, and Vice President of IBM Corporate Technology. He led IBM Watson as its Chief Technology Officer and Chief Architect from 2016 to 2019, and has held various technical research and engineering leadership roles across IBM's AI and research businesses. I invited him on this show as I was fascinated to learn about his journey from NIT Kurukshetra to leading IBM Research. Welcome, Ruchir. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Hey, thank you, Sanjay. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to your audience, and should be exciting discussion.
Yeah, Ruchir, to give you some perspective, we have a global audience, people largely from the Indian diaspora, but also not from the Indian diaspora who are curious about learning about the secret sauce that people like you have. So as they say, to find out about the secret sauce, as we say, we need to go to the very beginning. And the very beginning means tell our listeners, where were you born, and tell us a little bit about your parents and your siblings, Ruchir.
Certainly. So I was born in Kanpur, UP in India. Actually, my mother was sort of traveling through Kanpur and going to Patna, actually, where her father was at that time, back in the days. And I just arrived a little bit earlier than what was scheduled. And then that happened to be Kanpur, where her brother was as well, who is a physician actually at that point. And from the point of view of both my parents were professors. They were both PhDs. And if I wouldn't have done one, then I would have been the black sheep, actually, if I may say. They were both, we were well off, but we were not rich. Let's say I come from a highly family who are mostly teachers, if I may use the word. They were professors. My mother is a PhD in zoology, and my father is a PhD in chemistry, and they were sort of teaching in the university. And my father was chairman and professor of the chemistry department there at Kurukshetra. He's originally from sort of Allahabad, Gorakhpur area. Before partition, my dad's family moved from sort of the areas near the border over on the sort of on the UP side. So that occurred not during partition, but slightly before, when my grandfather actually moved over. And we have family that's highly focused on education. I have one sister, so it's me and my sister, and she's here in actually she lives in Florida and is a CPA actually. So
wonderful. So you came early to this world, and you were born in Patna, but parents were at that time based in Kanpur, Ruchir?
Yeah, we were actually. My father was a professor in sort of a young professor in chemistry at Kurukshetra University.
Yes.
And my mom, when she was pregnant with me, she was going to Patna where her father was, my grandfather actually. And Kanpur is on the way to Patna actually, on the train line. And her, as I said, her brother was in Kanpur, who's a physician actually. And so no, they were not based in Kanpur. They were based in actually in Kurukshetra. But my mother happened to be traveling for the delivery to her father actually at that time.
Yeah.
I just happened to arrive a little bit early.
She was going to her Mecca, basically.
Yeah, she was going to her Mecca, exactly.
Wonderful.
Quite
Wonderful.
quite traditional in those days, actually.
Yes. No, that's awesome. Now, Ruchir, tell us about your early memories of being in Kurukshetra, because that early memories are very formative also from personality, from a person's character perspective too.
My earliest memories, I would say, so being in a university sort of campus in India is in many ways a kind of a unique experience.
Mhm,
You will find the environment, sort of the areas around you, and I'm going back to those days, relatively very clean.
mhm,
The obviously the people you interact with and the families who are your close friends are obviously highly educated as well, mostly children of professors. And like I would say, just from my point of view, I was always the mischievous type, if I may use the word.
mhm,
My I think my dad and more my mom always worried about, he's gonna get into trouble. I don't know what he's gonna do.
mhm,
Uh, like most mothers will worry actually about the
mhm.
children and their future. She worried a lot about it. Uh, and my earliest memories are certainly getting into some trouble because I wasn't being as the like if I've two kids, two girls of my own now, and I say if I just look back at what the things I did, like, sort of that troubled my mother, I say similar things will trouble my wife now as well, and so life comes full circle. But my earliest memories are I remember sort of playing, what we used to call pittu in those days.
Yep. Mhm.
I can't find the English name for it per se.
Sure.
Um, really, Gulli Danda was another one that I was
Mhm,
very fond of. Cricket obviously is a universal sport, and
mhm.
pretty much I call it a religion in India. Was always there.
Yeah.
Those are sort of the early memories I remember, and it's very different here. But like my friends actually will come at home, and we didn't have actually like no extensive phone networks at all in those days, and they'll come and shout my name outside my house. And like my mom used to call me Tinku actually, and she'll say and my friends used to call, at least the close friends will call me the same as well, and they'll shout my name outside, and you just come outside. And I remember telling my mom, which kind of, well, I think thinking now she got used to it. I'll say, I will be back. And I didn't tell her exactly where I was going. I didn't tell her, like she knew it was very safe environment. So she knew I'll
Sure.
be fine. But, sometimes I'll be back in hours just playing around. But like, those were very interesting days. I think the environment these days is very different. I think even in India, it is very different. Like those days are kind of long gone. People
Yeah.
take appointments. Like we had a wonderful sort of childhood, very informal, if I may say. Friends who were very close, free of much of electronics, if I may say. No
Mhm.
social media. Like just human touch was very prevalent everywhere. So it was wonderful.
So what I gather, it was a safe environment because you were in a kind of a campus, like a little bit of a bubble, because this was your world. You didn't know what else was. It was, educated people kind of, but a lot of friend interaction. And you were sporty kind, playing pittu, playing gully danda, playing cricket, uh, yeah, all of that. And did you make some good friends at that time, Ruchir?
Yeah. I think those friends and memories, and like many of them are here as well. I'm very close friends. So some of them went to sort of school with me, obviously, grad school and others as well. And yes, I've actually friends, a lot of them in California. Uh, Overall, obviously, many from college days here in New York and other areas as well. But absolutely, yes. And I remember like one of my very close friends here in New Jersey, actually. Like we always recall And like we went to right from our families. His father was also professor in chemistry, and we are very close. But so I think one thing we both sort of recall, and other friends as well, that how safe the environment was. And I think you use the right word, how much of a bubble we were in, actually. We were kind of protected from the hustle and the bustle of Sheher, as they say it, actually, in Hindi.
Yeah.
And we kind of really protected from the business world as well. It was kind of a very protected environment. And just how, if I may use the word, pure things were at that time, actually, not unencumbered, if I may use that word, actually. So
There was no agenda, no pressure, no
wouldn't
nothing.
have pressure.
The only thing was friendship and fun, and so great memories of at that time, Ruchir.
Yes.
Now, where were you going to school during that time, Ruchir? Was this a school in that area itself?
Yeah. So yeah, interestingly, the university itself has a school of itself.
Mm.
So again, one of those bubbles where almost every kid you interacted with, their parents were university employees, let's say, but many of them professors as well. And so the teachers were certainly of good caliber. Again, this was sort of a more protected environment in a university environment. The school was run by the university. There was the kind of, if I may say, safety net of an established university as well there. So teachers, certain teachers got attracted to that environment. And so I went to sort of K to sort of 11 school there. And then those were the days when the engineering on our end used to be 5 years, as opposed to typical 4 years nowadays across the world, pretty much. And so there used to be only one engineering school in entire state of Haryana at that time, actually, just one, which is again given by the size of India. Like the competition used to be pretty tough overall, and like other schools, and this was one of the things where, like, this was after the school and when we went to college, actually. Like, because the National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra, was the campus of the university, and NIT were very close to each other. Like, they were just adjoining each other. And many of the good kids who were doing well went from there to the engineering school. And I think the other schools of IITs and others were 4 years. So either you did 12th or you went after 11th, actually. So for us, it was, if you got in, you went there, actually.
Correct.
And it was, again, I think from a schooling point of view, I have very close friends who are, like, we meet whenever I go to California. It's just good old times. Things have become much more complex these days.
Much more complex, for sure. Now, Ruchir, how were you as a student during K to 12? You were mischievous, as you said, but as a student, how were you?
I would say in the beginning, my mom had every reason to worry. But I think as I remember my dad, actually, and my dad and mom are no more, actually, but my dad saying, and I'll say some things in Hindi, and it's a, like, पता नहीं क्या करेगा, मैं प्रोफेसर हूँ, मेरे पास इतने पैसे तो है नहीं मैं तेरे लिए बिजनेस खोल दूँ, एक्चुअली मैं रिक्शा खरीद सकता हूँ तेरे लिए, लेकिन वो he'll say, टिंकू, मुझे नहीं लगता तू इतना स्ट्रांग है कि रिक्शा चला पाएगा 40 डिग्री हीट में, तो तू पढ़ ले थोड़ा सा. And like, this is my dad, actually. You kind of, my dad was a more chill type, I would say. Wonderful human being, actually. Like this, he would be more relaxed on things. And that would worry me. Like, my mom was a lot more driven, and like she really made sure we did the studies and so on. But like, as as I got more into, I would say, high school,
Mm.
then I quote unquote smartened up actually. And actually I remember I got very fond of mathematics, very fond of mathematics actually.
Mm.
That I started enjoying it a whole lot. There was one subject I enjoyed a whole lot actually. And that actually, once you pick up a more of a mathematical trend in that mind, then it sort of picks on itself. And after that, it was fine. But I do remember my mom and dad, and I remember this story from my dad very well. "तुझे मैं रिक्शा खरीद दूंगा मुझे नहीं लगता तू चला पाएगा मतलब 40 डिग्री हीट में पढ़ ले थोड़ा सा."
It's one of the funniest stories I've heard on this podcast. Uh, Ruchir, you said two important things which are important to our audience. You said when you went into high school, you suddenly started doing well, and then you took a real liking to math. Can you pinpoint something for our audience? What was it that was there a seminal event? Was there just something that came to you? के फादर ने रिक्शा का डर इतना था कि अब मैं I don't think I'll be able to do a rickshaw. Let me really find a non-rickshaw profession. And nothing against people who are driving rickshaws in our audience. I want to make sure that I don't offend any of the rickshawalas here.
No, no, but there is probably competition is pretty tough in that area.
In
So
that area.
it's not an easy profession to
Yes.
do.
And you probably wouldn't have been a great rickshawala anyway.
I would really say, I think probably, and I remember even early on, I would say, and this is, I was like, I had a very artistic bent of mind as well, actually. I used to paint very
Really?
early on, actually. And I, like, I had, and my mom says this, and I think many people know this about me, like, I would make things a whole lot from like nothing.
Mhm.
You may remember, and this, I'm really dating myself on this, and you may remember, like there used to be these watercolor, 6 of them in this camel box, yellow camel box that
Yeah.
will come with
Yep.
these are
Mhm.
like little
Yeah.
cylinders with
Yeah.
box actually. And I remember sort of I used to paint actually, and then I'll run out of them, and I had accumulated several of them. So I remember making, like I covered these boxes with like paper. I painted them red and like black dots on top to make like a train actually. And I made with these cylinders, their wheels actually. And
Hmm.
at the back, this is like one of the, if I may say, like in the wall, there was this closet actually, which is
Mhm.
open in our living room. And then I made these at the back. I made with carbon paper, which I don't think many of people will remember now.
Yep.
People who use typewriters used to use carbon
Carbon
paper
paper.
to
Yep.
make copy of what you're
And
typing,
it would stain your fingers and
and it
stuff
would
like
paint your finger and so on. And with carbon paper, on the sort of the other side of the carbon paper, I made black mountains actually, sort of
wow.
folding them, and so I would say I had a little bit very early on creative aspects. Of course, my mom didn't appreciate it as much at that time because she
True.
wanted me to get on the regular track of
Regular
study.
try.
But I would say, like, I found math very logical and also creative as well from many points of view because it offered me like a puzzle actually that I was looking at.
Hmm.
And I don't remember a particular incident other than I would say, like, there was certainly some fear of, okay, like, I think it is time to now kind of smarten up. You get into high school, and like after that, if you don't get into, like, I will say I was totally careless enough that I couldn't care what you did because it was a fact that we were not rich per se.
You're comfortable, not rich.
We were comfortable. We had a very safe environment and like wonderfully loving family.
Mhm.
But we were not rich actually. It's not like I had my dad's business to inherit.
Right.
Like, nahi karega, so that's fine actually. This is not fine.
That's true.
And at some point you realize it, that you come from and obviously with lot of credit to my mom, I would say, she kept at it. She just kept at it to keep focus and keep motivating me actually. I remember actually, and like young kids won't relate to it these days. Pitai bhi hoti thi kai baar actually.
Of
So
course.
she will actually, my mom, I remember, and like she will see me like pad nahi raha hai, like very early on. She will actually, or something else I'm doing, I got into some trouble. So she will hold me in her, because I used to run away actually. And she will hold me in her sort of, she will cross her legs and hold me actually.
Yep.
And hold my hands actually.
Hmm.
It don't flap them around. And she'll slap me a couple of times actually. And then she will cry actually. I
After
remember
hitting you.
crying after, giving me a lesson, and I'll tell her, it's kind of sort of the D type actually, as they say in Hindi. And she'll say, I'll tell her, like, if you are going to cry, then why are you actually like, slapping me? Like, this doesn't make sense actually, logically.
Oh
But
God.
I would say later on, I realized that I think you really have to. I I was always logical. Like,
Mm.
I think I smartened it up the time. I smartened up at the time I probably needed to. So I was not illogical actually. Like, I somehow realized early on that there is some slack built into the system.
System.
You can sort of pick up that little bit later. Now,
Yeah.
it's possible I may not have picked it up. It's
Yeah.
possible, but somehow I kind of, it's not that I took a risk, but I
Mhm.
was ignorant at that time, but I was able to pick that up later on, because I believe actually, again, this is where I believe, as long as you sort of keep on nurturing your creativity, irrespective of the modality in which you nurture that creativity, it helps you in many different dimensions. Like, I remember I was very fond of actually, like, I was always fond of kind of taking things apart. And sometimes I'll sort of put them together, other times I won't actually. Like, mom, these are the kind of things that, I would say, worried my mom a little bit. I take things apart and then I'll study them. And sometimes I got them together, like I will open up the radio actually. I'll take a watch apart actually. No, sometimes I got it together, other times I didn't actually. Uh, but those were the things I would say, those were not necessarily academic pursuits, but those were pursuits that helps your creativity a whole lot. Um, I was always actually, I remember this in school, I always questioned things. So, like, there was another maths professor, Dr. Sharda, actually, and like, my mom will say, why don't you, she was right next to us, like, why don't you go and ask her some things, actually? And she will sit down with me and she'll teach me something, and I would say, okay. And I had a longer way of doing things, actually.
Mm.
And so I'll present my answer to her and say, that's right, but not right, actually. And like, it's way too long. And I'll tell her, but it's right. What's wrong with it? Can you tell me what's wrong with this? And she will, like, of course, she was trying to teach me a more efficient way, but I was always on, like, this is my way. And obviously, I will be more efficient on it. Because just because it's your way and it is done something else, you are forcing me to learn that. There's nothing wrong in having another method, actually, which was my way of doing things. So I remember those things very well, because I think it wasn't just I was always going many times against the grain, actually. That's almost inherent in me many times. I'm not very easy to just fit in the system here, actually. Like, I've not usually haven't pursued the most normal path.
Mm. Ruchir, you said a couple of things that I want clarity for our audience. You said having that creative bent is really good, which you had. You were taking things apart, you were drawing with that carbon paper, etc. Why do you think that is important? Again, this is for our listeners to know, Ruchir.
I would say sort of success in life depends on not just absorbing information and sort of regurgitating it in some ways, but it also depends on what new things you're adding to a certain information, like what new knowledge you are adding,
Hmm.
like what's your contribution actually. Um, Taking that some information and sort of reproducing it is, we are living in the world of ChatGPT actually. That's done easily by machines.
Yeah.
And that has always been the case, I would say, that no, creativity is, in my mind, one of the most distinguishing traits of human beings. And yes, one may say machines will get there at some point, but like I would say, one differentiates, and one sort of someone excelling at creativity can take their knowledge, skills, and apply to many different things. If you just sort of keep to your lane, you can only do one thing. And if you sort of are more creative, you are able to bring many disciplines together and apply it to many disciplines as well. So you are much more flexible in a very fast changing environment, because the environment around you is changing all the time. Businesses shift, new technologies come and go, and change is constant. So people who are a lot more creative are much more adaptable to change. Thereby, I would say, adaptation is about, I would say they are the survivors, actually. They are the people who excel overall, I would say.
Yeah. So being able to survive, being able to adapt, I think comes from creativeness. The other thing you said, and that's also for our audience, is that you did not fit in, so to speak. Uh,
A
do
mold.
you find that is that a problem, or you're at this stage you're comfortable with that? Because there are a lot of people like I presume you know that, who are in this audience who are saying, "Hey, I don't fit in. I've never fitted in." But
I would almost say you have to manage it. You can't be like so disruptive that people kind of throw you out, if I may say it that way. You have to figure out the battles you're going to fight, actually. Like, I didn't fit in a mold, but it wasn't like I was being disruptive or disrespectful or kind of chaotic, actually, in many ways. I didn't fit in a mold, which is a sort of a very traditional path that people follow. They study, they go give exams, they excel at it. And like I did many different things early in my school days, actually. And like, just as you grow actually as you go along in your journey, I would say, um, not fitting in a constructive way is a wonderful property.
why? Just for our audience.
Because, like, if people just fit in, then, like, I, as a leader, would like to listen from someone a contrarian view, actually, a well-supported, logically contrarian view. If everybody kind of fit in and said, look, like, abided by what I am saying or others are saying around them, which is kind of the system as it is, then it's hard to add sort of that new knowledge, if I may say, for
Yeah.
that sort of overall that area. So not fitting in, of course, we can't have all the people not fit in, and we can't have all the people who fit in. But sort
Right.
of these two perspectives are kind of checks and balances, if I may say. I was certainly on the part of, and have always been, kind of not fitting in exactly. And I don't mean it in a sort of disruptive way, actually. I always brought sort of a questioning, contrarian point of view into things. And as you sort of go along with your journey, you hone your intuition more and more and more on, okay, this sounds right, this doesn't sound right, actually. Like, this is just the knowledge you acquire and the experience you get.
Yeah. But I think your point also was that uh, you question, but be well supported by facts. Don't just question without just saying, okay, I'm questioning the status quo, but I don't have any basis of questioning that status quo.
Yeah, yeah. Like, always, like, example I gave, by our sort of math professor, and she telling me, like, that's not wrong, but that's wrong. And I questioned, like, this method is my method. I know it very well. It's fast for me. What's wrong? And it's so supported by a proof, actually. It's not like I'm just questioning. It was supported by a fact, data, and that has always been what I have appreciated in people. Don't give opinions. Opinions are like dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Give opinions supported by facts, because then you can argue it. People may not agree with them all the time, but at least you are on solid foundation, actually.
Yeah. That is true. Um, so, Ruchir, as time was going by, you became really interested in math, and you got into, you know, really all-out mode in high school. Well, you went into an extra gear. So, what happened? You did the 11th. You didn't do the plus two, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what happened in 11th? How did you do? Tell our audience a little bit about that.
So those used to be the days when we didn't have a sort of nowadays there's kind of entrance exam for everything. We had our what we call our PCM
Hmm.
grades, physics, chemistry, math.
Yeah.
There used to be a ranking, and this used to be sort of a university exam. They were like the board exam. There was ranking. There's state level boards actually,
Hmm.
and you get your score, and the score are ranked, and you like a line is drawn. This is not like here where you write an essay, and
Yeah.
things are very subjective actually,
Right.
and not objective as much, if I may use that. This is rhyme and reasoning to all methodologies, but
Yeah.
there it was very clear. Ends at 84.5%, line drawn.
Done.
You are
Out.
84.49, too bad actually. Like there is no like go actually try next year. Uh, and you got in. Actually, my grade wasn't the, I would say, highest to get. We didn't have computer science at that time. Actually,
Hmm.
we had electronics and communication engineering, which was the branch which used to be kind of most popular.
Hmm.
And of course, we had civil, mechanical, and electrical engineering and so on. And I got into electrical engineering. And in the first year of college, I did very, very well, actually. These used to be like, 200 of top students. Half of them came from that state, and half of them came from across India.
Right.
These are national institutes, so there used to be split, actually. And all national institutes like those were split because it kind of reserved, actually. They wanted to get students from across India. Every state had some kind of seats that they had for the schools. And among those, like 200 kids or so, I did very, very well, actually. And to the point, there used to be like one or two kids who will change their branch to like electronics and communication. And there were only 30 students in that branch at that time, which was the most sort of popular, if I may use the word, branch. It was like computer science today, actually. And and I changed it after first year, actually, because I was passionate about electronics, actually. That's something that inspired me always. Digital things inspired me always, actually. I remember, as I told you, actually, I remember taking digital clocks apart even before I got into sort of engineering school. That always, so there I studied computer architecture. I remember in my senior sort of project, I built a robot. I still have that thesis, actually. And we designed a printed circuit board by hand. We built it by hand from scratch. We programmed a microprocessor. We collaborated with the mechanical engineering department to build a robot. This is like, I'm talking 1987. And we were building robotics at that time, actually. And this is like
Unbelievable.
really wonderful time I had, actually.
Wow. So you were building robotics in 87. You were doing PCB boards there. Do you think when you went there, you found out that this was your calling, so to speak? You had found what you were good at?
I I just loved engineering. Like many people who know me know I'm like, I just, I can't see myself in any other profession than like engineering. I love hands-on work.
Mhm.
Um, most people here know I code on a regular basis, despite all the responsibilities you get. I
Mhm.
just don't want to be a person who talks about things without knowing them. Let me say it that way. I don't want to be.
Yeah.
I want to talk about things that I know about. Otherwise,
Yeah.
let other people talk. It's fine. It's good, actually. Like
Yeah.
people who know should talk. And of course, you have to communicate well as well. I don't mean actually that, no, you can just, if you're just an expert and if you don't communicate well, you shouldn't. There's a role for everyone. But yes, that was certainly my calling actually on. I loved, as I said, I like our first year of actually, this was since 5 years, and we used to have these workshops actually, like doing smithy, carpentry. We sort of did lathe, through which we built really complex, heavy iron things. Actually, we used to have uh, electrical engineering labs, and I just like that kind of stuff. I loved it. So it wasn't just about math. I loved connecting theory to practice. I want to understand theory, but I really want to do practice. That was what I just loved actually. And I think, and it really came from, as we were discussing earlier, from my time, this sort of creative activities, because it gave venue to me to be more creative actually, in sort of almost a formal education way. That it allows you, it taught you skills and gave you knowledge through which you can build things to impact the world actually. That I could, like, you can just play around and not formally impact the world. That gave me the tools and the mechanism through which you can impact the world. And again, I was not philosophical that I have to literally change the world and so on, but it just gave me innate joy actually.
Yeah.
Which again, I was being, it made me happy actually.
So, Ruchir, two things from what you said again for our audience. Did you get into electronics because of your certain grade, or did you yourself know that this is what I want to do? Because some people spend their whole life not finding their innate joy, which you did. And this is very important for them to know. How did you get into? Was it an accident or luck?
No, I would say for me, I was always curious about sort of things that are quote unquote electronics. We used to have this radio called Pi radio actually, way back when in India. And like I took it apart, I take its speakers, woofers, connected to different things. This is school days actually. I had a matka in which I'll put a speaker and some wool, and I'll look at acoustics and like all kind of stuff. I will, as I said. So I was always very fond of, if I may say, electronics things, and sort of building them and taking them apart and so on. And so the creative aspects connected there quite well. And even when I got into sort of the school, the college, engineering school, I got into electrical engineering, but because my passion was on electronic side so much, I just wanted to get there. Now, obviously, you needed to be in top 15% of the kids at the entrance to get there. I wasn't there, that's from a grade point of view yet, but I made it a point there, and like out of 200 students, I was third actually. So first, second, third, I was third ranked actually, consistently. And of course, that enabled me, and the top two students were already in electronics branch. So, okay, that allowed you to just say, okay, there is an opening there, so you can go. And I had my eyes set on it right from the very beginning, actually. There were very few students who changed branches. I think I'm the only one who did actually do that particular branch of engineering, electronics and communications. And again, I think to answer your question precisely, no, I kind of knew actually.
You knew.
Because I'd been playing with it a whole lot. It's not like I knew because of the salaries were high, or that didn't even play in my mind at all. It just was like I was playing with this stuff enough actually. And maybe that was part of the reason I could argue I would have done better in the grade, from a grades point of view, even earlier, had I not been devoting so much of time having fun with these things actually. So it kind of sort of comes back to you in terms of, and I would say that has benefited me a whole lot in terms of that creativity, connecting threads, being very hands-on and so on.
Yeah. You said something else, Ruchir, about, being hands-on. You said you still code, people who know you. You still like to do things. And you said that's very important. You're not just talking about things, you know things. Why is that important for our audience to know? There are people who just can talk from theory, but you actually have probably coded in C or Lisp or Prolog or any of these other
Yeah, coded
languages.
in assembly, built
Yeah,
something what is known as Norton utility way back when.
yeah.
Yeah, basic. I like a lot of languages. C, C++, Java, Python, you name it.
Right.
In any case, uh, I believe. See, we are in an era driven by technology,
Mm-hmm.
and technology changes amazingly fast these
Mm-hmm.
days,
Right.
more so than at any other time. Techies must know the sort of the technical underpinnings behind things. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way to know technical underpinnings is to practice it. That's the only way to know, actually. Because this is not about theory as much. I think things are becoming very practical.
Mm-hmm.
Physics can be theory, actually. Engineering is not theory per se. You need some theoretical background. But engineering by its very nature is a practical discipline. Engineering is an applied discipline, actually. You apply knowledge of physics, mathematics, chemistry, and other things to it, but you are building things. And building things, physics only captures some sort of, if I may say, pure things.
Mm-hmm.
When you try implementing things, world isn't pure, actually. You build physical models or physical equations, but they ignore many things regarding, well, the friction is kind of this way. You can assume the surface is frictionless. Well, the surface is not frictionless, actually. The surface has very non-uniform friction. And when you start playing these things and like it should go here, but it goes like the robot we are trying to build, it should go here, but it goes here because the surface we have is like the cement surface with all kind of potholes in it. And like
That's true.
there's no way to model it. There's no way to model it, actually. You're going to need a supercomputer to model these kind of things. The real world is very, very complex. And that's why I say, like, okay, do things, kind of come from an experience point of view into this, because you're an engineer, actually. Now, if you are a theoretician or something, you can prove things mathematically. I got it. But like you are an engineer, and engineers build things. And like you should be talking from your experience rather than it should be so. And like the one thing I would never want to end up there is like talking when you don't have a good idea, actually. It's like you can read about it and talk some buzzwords, but like I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's just it doesn't make me happy. Just does not make me happy. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, some of our leaders say that when they get to a certain level, they get meetinged out. They go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and there's not enough time to do the hands-on stuff that they used to do. Any suggestions for them?
I would say similar will hold true for me, but it's to a slightly lesser extent. Almost everyone knows, actually, many of the Fridays afternoons I reserve it for myself. I would read over the weekend. And to me, it's not that I haven't gotten like just my titles and other things. So obviously, meetings get slapped onto it, but many times I would say, like, you are known by the credibility you have, and that credibility is a technical credibility. Actually, people value your opinion because you're technically good. And if you lose that, then obviously over time you're gonna lose what makes you credible as well. And I've always taken that to heart, actually. Just know what your skills are, what you excel at, and keep true at it. It's almost like a business. No, keep true to your core strengths. Realize what your core strengths are and fight on them. Versus, oh, that area is growing, let me go there. And many times businesses will fail on that because that's not their core strength, actually. And then they stumble and they fail on it, and all the money that you invested in it goes down as well. Like I knew my strengths always. My strength comes from my technical underpinnings. So I prioritize it in many ways. I'll even on the meetings and other things, I'll say, I don't think I need to be there. Like, I know you need a title, but I don't think I need to be there. Someone else should cover it. Of course, many times I'm forced as well, just because you have certain titles, so you need to go some places. So it's not like I'm not victim of that meeting overload, but I've tried my best to keep it in check. because like you need to continue to hone your core strengths and fight from them rather than become someone else that you are not innately.
So hone your core strengths. I think that's a great message, and fight from there. And don't give up that. Um, Ruchir, let's just go back to the engineering days because did exceptionally well because you're in 87, 88, you were doing robots, PCBs. Uh, what happened at the end of that? You were getting ready to graduate. How did you do?
I'm getting ready to graduate, and like there weren't many people who were sort of going out for education. And like at that point, I said, I think I should go and get some. Like I wasn't. I remember. So there used to be this company called Semiconductor Complex Limited in Chandigarh, the only semiconductor fab in India, the only one actually, which later on got burnt down as well and got rebuilt. Actually, this was in Mohali actually, and I like they had a test and written test and this and that, and I did fine actually. So I got selected for the job. And like, I remember actually going to this fab, and this was clean room actually. As you know, semiconductor chips need a clean room. And given the environment in India at that time, this clean room is like spick and span, AC inside. It's like a wonderful environment. It's like, oh, I think I can do that. This is a nice working place. Like kind of a posh environment, if I may say. This is kind of nice. And I said, I think I need to learn more, actually. Like I really need to learn more. So I gave this exam called, graduate aptitude entrance test. And it, yeah, actually, this was so I went to IIT Kanpur for my master's.
Oh,
There
you
I
after
did,
that.
yeah,
So after
and
that,
there
you
I
went to IIT Kanpur.
yeah, then I get to IIT Kanpur, and then I did my master's over there. And in actually, interestingly, in microelectronics and electrical engineering.
Wow.
So I continued my journey on electronics.
Well, why did you do masters when you did you want to learn more? What was the motive behind that?
The reason was if you were in an IIT at that time, there was kind of a lot of students were going out actually. So you
Hmm.
had kind of a mentors who were going out. You knew how to fill the applications and so on. Like no, at NIT, we didn't have that many people going for grad education outside at that much. Most of the students will go get a job. They did like I would say many of my classmates or have done like incredibly amazingly actually in businesses and so on. And that was kind of the path people were on. It was not normal for people to go for kind of higher education. And which was, I think, in IITs, it definitely was different at that time and is different now as well. And so I went to Kanpur actually, and my mother's side actually, like my grandfather was in Kanpur at that time as well. But so there I did microelectronics and electrical engineering, and my project was actually on designing software to design chips actually. So that's where I picked up software actually.
Oh, really?
And I took a lot of computer science classes on natural language processing. That was my first class at that time at Kanpur.
Hmm.
I took classes in computer architecture and so on. And from there, I went to Alberta in Canada, did computer engineering, and then in PhD, and I had like a phenomenal time actually. And then joined IBM Research actually.
So going from the engineering college to IIT, was that a big transition for you?
It was a wonderful learning environment because the caliber of the people coming in, they were coming in from all over India, but they were all very academically oriented. By then I had become quite sort of good at academics and sort of cracking this stuff as well. And again, I think my passion continues to be in software, sort of electronics and software
Hmm.
at that time. And I was given the opportunity to truly hone it actually. Even in undergrad, actually, at NIT, I remember doing an internship once in this company actually, which used to make scooters actually called Loya machines actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I did software for them actually. So I was one of the very few kids across my entire undergrad class who was doing software at that early a time when most people aren't actually. I had one of my friends, his uncle came from Ohio actually at that time, and he bought a Atari computer actually.
Mm-hmm.
And this friend of mine who was with me in college, he was from actually MP, Madhya Pradesh. He didn't have actually a screen. Sort of, we had a TV, and he didn't have this to hook up to. So he kind of gave. We were very close, so he gave it to me, and I kind of will play with it, and I connected it. So I had access to a computer probably very early on. That not because I bought it or we could afford it, because this friend of mine whose uncle came from Ohio got him
Gave
an
it to.
Atari computer that he didn't know what to do with, and he gave it to me actually.
Wow.
That's so I had this sort of desire and passion very early on, and I was able to hone it and sort of further it at Kanpur,
Mm.
uh, which was a wonderful learning environment. Like I went back recently, like I would say 3 years back, where I've been sort of like, blessed and lucky to be recognized as a distinguished alumni from IIT Kanpur. With
Well, congratulations.
your luminaries there are just awesome. Actually, our
Mm.
CEO Arvind Krishna, who is also like 2 years back before I was, he was recognized as well. And I was telling this to Arvind that this is like such a wonderful thing because you go to your alma mater and like the halls you took lectures in, and so I did kind of. I wouldn't say it was a step change, but the caliber of people was very high. The professors were amazing as well. It's a very, again, a bubble. I would certainly call it a bubble, but
Yeah.
was a wonderful environment. And I did well there as well. And sort of there, I continued to grad school and then my journey at IBM. So
And why did you pick Alberta for grad school, Ruchir?
I would, I would really say I was actually going to be in Minnesota. My advisor had like some visa issues and so on, so
Mm.
he actually happened to move, and I went there with him. Actually, this was admission time. He was actually good in the area that I was going to do my grad school in, and it was a wonderful choice actually for me, because actually, another thing I love is nature. I just love nature actually overall. I can go and hike by myself for days actually.
So Alberta was just God sent for you.
Yeah, it's like such a beautiful place
It
actually.
is.
It's like it's like turquoise blue lakes and snow-capped mountains, and this was just amazing actually. So
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, Ruchir, we talk about some inflection points of people's lives, uh, that would have made a big impact. And obviously, your journey is still continuing. We'll talk about that. Was going to IIT or coming to Alberta because your professor had visa issues? Would you consider either one of those key inflection points in your life?
I would certainly say, like, if there's an inflection point in my life, it'll be like the biggest one will be coming to IBM Research. I
Mm.
That is truly an inflection point because it was like, to me, this was, and this is like I'm talking about 1994, 95 actually. This was the place where like massive innovations were happening. Actually, this is like heydays of IBM, and like people here were like, I used to read books about them. There were 6 Nobel Prize winners in this building, 6 Turing Award winners, which is kind of Nobel Prize of computer
Of
science.
course.
And like you look at like this is the, I don't know if you know about like fractals, and Mandelbrot was here, and like people who invented actually entire areas. Bob Dennard, who invented memory, was here. Uh, like people who invented databases, computer programming languages, and like to me, this was the temple of technology at that time. And like just to be able to work in that environment, and that was your first break that you got. There's actually a wall in here when you walk into IBM Thomas J. Watson Research Center. They used to have this wall actually where they have pictures of all IBM fellows actually until that point. And you look at that wall and you're like in awe, actually, literally in awe that you're in the middle of gods, actually. You're in a temple.
That's true.
But to me, that was, I would say, the pivotal point in my journey. And it's been almost, I would say, kind of 29 years and counting for me. This was, I usually say it, I don't call it work. You get paid to have fun. It's not work.
Yeah.
Work is fun. And I just, I usually say it, I wouldn't go and change anything. Like I'm lucky, blessed in every possible way. From a professional point of view and personal as well. I have like a wonderful, loving wife and two wonderful daughters. Both of them are in college, and one just graduated college and went to grad school now.
So how did you get into IBM after Alberta? Because you said that was obviously a key inflection point.
Yeah, interestingly, I was doing kind of a sort of a bridge gap actually once you graduate for a couple of months at this place in Ottawa called Bell Northern Research, which was there was a company called, it was, think of it as Bell Labs Northern Arm actually, if I may say. And there was a person here who was kind of was doing a postdoc, but was going to look for a job somewhere else because there wasn't kind of a permanent position available. So he sent me his resume, and I was kind of looking at a position, and I knew, of course, I knew about Thomas J. Watson Research Center, and I said, like, while you are at it, I circulate your resume here. Why don't you take my resume and kind of circulate as well? And like I got an interview call, and like I interviewed, and it went amazingly well. And this used to be like 2 days interview process. It was like, I loved the people, and like I mean, this was the place where, so in my specialization area in grad school, I studied algorithms for basically the application area where I applied algorithms is for chip design. These chips are made with literally, billions of transistors, hundreds of billions by now. Nobody can design them by hand. They're designed with software, like highly, specialized optimization software, which is what I did, which is a perfect combination of mathematics and practice. Electrical engineering, computer science, mathematics, and practice. And I'm like, that's the area I just loved actually. And I came here and I applied that area, and people who were like chief editors of top journals in that area were here actually. And like I was just lucky to be, everything that has been invented in that area for software, for chip design, was done in this building actually, in which I'm lucky to work still.
Wow.
It's just awesome actually to be here. And that's why I called that particular moment out like turning point. Because I think if that wasn't the turn I took, I'll do fine. Actually, it's not like I won't do fine. But just like my innate curiosity and creativity wouldn't have been fed even a fraction of what it has been, because just me being here and like the wonderful set of people that exist. Just the brilliance of it actually is like awesome.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. Ruchir, when you left India, were your parents in favor of that? I mean, you were leaving the country. What did mom and dad have to say?
Yeah, so I think because both my mom and dad came, obviously they were professors themselves, so they were certainly in favor of, go get more education.
More educated.
Definitely. And obviously if you want to go for PhD and something, like the environment wasn't very conducive to that in engineering area in India at that time.
Right.
I spent some time at Indian Institute of Science as well, actually. Like I did an internship there, and yeah, that was a good place, but there were kind of better places available and good professors available outside. And my dad always encouraged that it'll give you a different perspective in life, if nothing else. It'll broaden you a whole lot. So yeah, they were certainly in favor. My mom, obviously, and like, it's not that she would have preferred, but like she was, I think my mom was my biggest fan, if I may say, actually.
Yeah.
She scolded me a whole lot, but was also my biggest fan, actually, I would say. And she was sad, but like sad in ways a mom will be, actually.
Yeah.
You want your children close by, you can see them, but that way. So no, I did not face a resistance from going out.
That's true. That is true. Um, Ruchir, you obviously have had just enormous success. Um, engineering, IBM, etc. Has your definition of success changed over time? I mean, when you were starting out, you probably were looking for a job or a PhD or things like that.
Definitely, I think that would happen with almost anyone as you mature. Um, like my definition of success was never money. Interesting, never money. That was not something that sort of. I think I say it with all honesty. Lack of money can make you unhappy. More of money will not make you happy. Yeah, you need certain amount to be comfortable.
Comfortable.
But just because you have more doesn't make you happy, actually. Because if a number makes you happy, by definition, you will be unhappy because someone has more than you. If that's what you're watching out for, you are in trouble already, actually.
Yeah.
And again, I think my definition of success has always remained in some ways constant, which is about just do things that kind of make you happy. And if you're happy, you're successful. That's my success has never, my measure has never been either degrees or this or that. I think, okay, that's fine. Yes, that's the way at which world looks at it. And I'm saying this with all honesty, actually. Um, it's good to be comfortable with yourself. That's most important, actually. And then obviously to be able to contribute knowledge. For me, the success metric was for me to be able to contribute to a body of knowledge in the area in the discipline I practiced. That was important to me. Very important to me that you have the credibility in that area, you are known in the area, people recognize in that area. And that's what made me happy. That's what I'm saying, actually. That for me, the success metric was recognition by the community of your skills, a respect by the community, and your innate happiness that you contributed to the world, actually, in this discipline. To me, that was a measure of success. And in addition, being sort of have a moral compass, if I may say, actually. I always kept that moral compass with me, always, actually. We'll do it in a way that is, ethical, that's moral, and that's it. And partly that came from my sort of family's education background.
Yeah.
That, okay, do no hanky-panky, just do straight. Yeah, you can, there is a path through it. If you are honest to yourself, there is a path through it. So,
Yeah. So as you said, success is defined by your contribution to the things that you enjoy are of value to you. Ruchir, all our guests talk about the role of mentors in their life. Mentors come in many, many shapes, sizes, parents, grandparents, teachers, colleagues, etc. Have they played any role in your life at all?
oh, absolutely. I would say like every person who is successful by whatever metrics someone chooses is supported by like it's standing on shoulders of others for sure. And I was no different. I would say if I go very early on, despite me not realizing it at that time, my mom was my mentor for sure. Like she was the one who was guiding light. And you don't realize it that early on in your life, actually. But like now that you are more experienced, a little bit wiser, probably you realize it more. Uh, and then I think in college days, there's a professor, actually, Dr. K.K. Agrawal. He was certainly an outstanding mentor who encouraged me to sort of really, I think your nature matches doing further studies. You should actually. And then I think from I would say grad school onwards, um, my mentors here have been the colleague of mine here, Louise Trevelyan. Actually, she was like incredibly smart and brilliant. She's been my mentor. People like another sort of a engineer friend of mine, John Cohn, is like amazingly hands-on, truly brilliant person. He's been my mentor. And then, of course, you know, kind of you have, if I may say, your virtual idols, if I may say. They kind of guide you because you read about them and you know about their life and so on, and they're not sort of mentor that you talk to everyday basis, but they are kind of your guiding lights, if I may say that way. So I've sort of have had several, but I would say the other one, if I may say, my wife herself, she's a physician actually, and she is definitely a she's incredibly smart and has, if I may say, more years of education than I do, given she's medicine and she came here and she, gave all the exams, went to residency and so on. And like, I think we would both argue we are mentors to each other, definitely. So I think I'm blessed and lucky in many different ways, actually.
So wide variety of mentors and people should look out for them is what your message is to our audience.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes they come in forms you don't realize, actually. And typically I look at mentor relationship as a give and take. Never one way. Successful mentorships are never one way, actually.
Why do you say that?
You learn from them and they are learning something from you as well, actually, because irrespective of what position you are at, you had your unique path as well into this. So yes.
Ruchir, you had a great journey, 29 plus years at IBM, etc. Where do you see your journey going from here? I mean, you still have a long, beautiful journey ahead, and it's hard in this world to predict, but if you were to take a guess, or if I were to put in ChatGPT, where do I see Ruchir's journey? What do you think will ChatGPT or Llama or any of these things spit out?
So interestingly, I'm lucky to work in a place where, like, Bob Dennard worked, the guy who invented the memory and discovered semiconductor scaling laws, and like people, like he just quote unquote retired. He's still a fellow emeritus after 50 years.
Wow.
Like he will come, he's just brilliant, just raw brilliance, actually. This is, and like you're just lucky to work in a place where like age is not seen as a kind of you need to, as long as you are contributing and you're having fun. And one thing I think a lot of people know about me, I have very high energy. My wife worries about that energy, actually. Like you are always like,
you're on
actually. Like literally, she says, I can wake you up, Ruchir, at night, and like you will say yes. It's like you're never off, and that's what she worries about. As a physician, she worries about it, but I have a very high energy, actually, and I find too many things very exciting. I think we'll be, with the fingers crossed, with good health. I'll continue as long as I'm a contributing, really a good contributor to this community. And the day I stop being that, I actually tell it to my my senior vice president, like, Dario, you should fire me that day, actually. Just like, I do not want to be like, if I am somehow not in my right senses, that I'm still here when I'm not in that high energy mode, then like, I think you should, that means I'm not in my senses, actually. You just fire me
Right.
that day. It's like, I don't want to be in a situation where like I just want to continue to work and contribute. And the day I'm not, I don't need to work, quote unquote, for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I mean, many people in my position or others have reached that stage, but we are
Mhm.
working because we are making an impact, defining a strategy, defining direction of a massive company, like an iconic company like IBM. Actually, it was like, 112 years old.
Wow.
That means a lot, actually, and I take that responsibility very seriously. Yeah.
Good. We took you in the future. Now, maybe we'll take you back for a second. What advice would you give to Ruchir, who's just uh, graduating out of IIT with a master's degree? If you were to just tell him one or two things, looking back. This is also for our audience, by the way.
I would, one thing I actually, when they make you an IBM Fellow, which is the highest technical honor that someone can get, actually, and they're like, in IBM's history of 112 years, we have only had 380 odd fellows, actually, with their iconic sort of history overall. And then when they make you a fellow, they kind of ask you a similar question, and so there's an interview, and they're not a formal interview, like when after you have made a fellow, like what advice and so on. And I only give one advice to everyone, and I never sort of articulated it that well until later in my life. So I come from Kurukshetra, actually, which is, many people in India know, this land of Mahabharata, actually, where Lord Krishna gave the famous sermon of Gita, actually. And the most famous sort of verse from, or slok from Gita is, Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadashti. And I'd never sort of internalized it as much in the beginning. I was always on that path, actually. But like, get some principles in life and just stick to them. And to me, and I say this now, I'm responsible for all the technical executives and leaderships and so on in this company. And I always tell them, like, when people come to me and say, like, when will I be a distinguished engineer? And I say, I think that's the wrong question to ask. Like, trust me, if you do the work, there's someone out there who is watching out. Right? But if you do the work with all honesty, you will be fine, actually. And just focus on the work. Don't worry about, what will happen. And like, I don't think in Gita it meant don't look forward to the result. It just meant don't get deviated by what will happen in the results, actually. That's what that sloka actually means. So that means if you're worrying about the results, your focus is not entirely on the job itself. And to me, I would, like, if I just give that, like, tell this to my younger self, I will probably internalize this a lot more earlier in my life, actually. It's not that I didn't, I always had kind of that principle, but I only sort of articulated it much better later in my life. And I would just tell this to every techie. Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadashna.
Very well said. Focus on your work or your deeds, as they say.
Yeah, as they say, focus on your work / deeds, and the rest will be fine. Actually, be truthful to yourself, have a moral compass, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Great. Ruchir, just in closing, very brief lightning round of questions, just one or two sentences. Our podcast is called Indianness. What is your definition of Indianness?
Yeah, my definition of Indianness is, so I'm a Hindu, and Hinduism is not, quote unquote, a hard religion, it's a philosophy.
Mhm.
And my definition of Indianness is really follow the philosophy of, and in my case, again, I'm a spiritual person, Hinduism. Um, and I think it's a wonderful philosophy, and every religion has a philosophy. So I'm not about just, it's not about a particular religion. Follow a philosophy in life. And to me, Indianness is about following that philosophy that our sort of our culture and history has taught us.
Right. Follow your philosophy. Ruchir, who has been the one most influential person in your journey? One, not two. And I have a feeling I know the answer, but let's see what your answer is.
I would say my mother.
I knew that. Um, Ruchir, final question. Nike's tagline is just do it. If Ruchir had to have a tagline, what would that be?
Again, I think I just said it. Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadacha.
I knew you would say that. Ruchir, thank you so much. I mean, I could go on for hours because there's so many other things I wanted to know. I didn't get a chance to talk about your sibling. I wanted to know a little bit more about your parents, their journey a little bit, but maybe we'll have you back again. But what a fascinating journey and what humility. Thank you for the time and for what you do. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think this was a wonderful conversation. I can say it with all honesty. I truly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.